Dear students, it is very important to know what is biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety of all life on Earth, species and ecosystem diversity. Today's biodiversity is the fruit of billions of years of evolution shaped by natural processes and increasingly by the influence of humans. Now, what is biodiversity? In a definition, biodiversity is the shortened form of the words biological and diversity. It refers to all the variety of life that can be found on Earth, that is plants, animals, fungi and microorganisms, as well as to the communities that they form and the habitats in which they live. People depend on biodiversity in their daily lives in ways that are not always apparent or appreciated. That human health ultimately depends upon ecosystem products and services such as availability of fresh water, food and fuel sources, which are requisite for good human health and productive livelihoods. Values of biodiversity. There are two values of biodiversity. Number 1, direct values, and number 2, indirect values. What is direct values? There are direct and indirect values of these resources. The direct values include the consumptive use, productive use values. The consumptive use value is the value placed on nature's products that are consumed directly without passing through a market. This includes consumption use value and productive use values. Number 2, indirect values. Biodiversity provides indirect benefits to human beings, which support the existence of biological life and other benefits which are difficult to quantify. It includes social and cultural values, ethical values, aesthetic values, option values and environmental service values. Now, it's very important point, approach for conservation of biodiversity. There are 3 successful approaches to protecting biodiversity are captive breeding, laws and treaties, and habitat preservation. There are different approaches for biodiversity conservation in India. There are 2 basic approaches towards conservation of biodiversity, that is in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Number 1, in situ conservation. A biosphere reserves. Out of 400 biosphere reserves in the world, 14 are in India. Hotspots are the areas or regions of high endemism and very high levels of species richness. There are 34 hotspots in the world, of which there are in India, namely Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya. So, these are the examples of in situ conservation. B. National parks and wildlife sanctuaries. India has 90 national parks and 448 wildlife sanctuaries. Number 2, ex situ conservation. India has 35 botanical gardens and 275 zoological parks. By using cryopreservation technique, sperms, eggs, animal cells, tissues and embryos can be stored for a long period. Plants are propagated by using tissue culture methods called micropropagation.